So describe this place to us. What was this location?
This was Evergreen.
You know, from just an outsider's point of view, I'm looking at this place and it looks pretty legit.
Oh yeah.
The location does.
Well, what the hell, it was legit at the time. Nobody was stopping them. I had to have all of my uniform people ready to go. We want everything that has to do with Evergreen. We went in this door, went right downstairs, spread out. They were just shocked, they're surprised. It was like a narcotics task force, the people that don't know it's coming. And the idea is to do it fast. Don't give anybody any chance to think about anything. Lock the office down, grab the phones, everything. And all of a sudden, it's over.
And Willan?
Oh yeah, he was here. We wanted to make sure that he was aware that the Summit County law enforcement was interested in him. We didn't want him to think that nobody loved him, and he just thought that he was going to get away with it. He didn't have a clue.
The team conducted a similar raid on Carnation Bank. After confiscating the company's computers, they were able to sift through all of the employee emails.
And you can go by date or subject matter. What are they sending emails about? When was this loan made? Who made it? And then just look before that. What was said on the computer? Now we have documented evidence. We had the bad paperwork. We had the loan going out. People write the damnedest things in email.
Perhaps the most disturbing thing they uncovered was evidence as to why so many foreclosures were happening in neighborhoods like Addie's.
We want to know who they were targeting. They were targeting, in many cases, minorities. So where did you get that? Now, we knew that was happening, but you have to prove these things.
Right.
And now we had their employees who wanted to back up from this and get away from it. And, they wanted their meeting at the foot of the cross and wash themselves of this whole thing. They knew it was wrong. They did it. They were employees. They did it.
You would have to wonder why lottery machines are prevalent in our community. You would have to wonder why there are so many places that sell alcohol. You would wonder why so many churches are located in a small geographical area, because the people have no hope. They're living day to day. You know what? I'm going to sign this paper because my roof is leaking and because my stairs are crumbling. Those companies preyed on not just the people, but they preyed on the circumstance the people were in.
Too often, it's not told that it's minorities they're targeting, because nobody cares. Well, I cared. And it also, if it was a felony 3, in some cases, it made it a felony 2, because you're targeting minorities or the poor or people that can't fight back. And we have an interest in that.
The raids on Evergreen and Carnation Bank resulted in a 147-count indictment. Willan was ultimately convicted on 69 counts, including mortgage fraud, securities fraud, aggravated theft, theft from the elderly, and ultimately racketeering, otherwise known as RICO.
These guys actually thought we weren't going to get them. And it was probably 4 or 5 months in. It was just, we're going to get them. This is just a matter of time now. And we did.
For the Summit County Task Force, the Willan case was a job well done. But there was still one thing that they had never managed to figure out. When they raided Carnation Bank and confiscated everything from computers to false documents, they never actually found any mortgages. It was Carnation who'd ultimately issued the loans, so surely they would have been in their possession at the time of the raid. But they weren't. So if Carnation didn't have them, who did?
So they were totally doctoring all of the loans that were being originated through to be able to get the loans approved, and then they would bundle these and then they would sell them to the next player.
They'd sell them out to California.
To California, okay. So that would lead directly to Countrywide, I would imagine.
Right.
Among others.
Among others.
Countrywide. The same national mortgage company that sold Addie her loan was also buying up bad mortgages from Carnation Bank. And while it wasn't clear what any multi-billion-dollar mortgage company from California would want with a bunch of bad loans from Akron, Ohio, what was clear was that Evergreen and Carnation were involved in something much larger than anyone had realized.
It was countrywide in one of the cases, but there were other companies. So this whole country is going under because of this. And then as this thing started to grow and grow and grow, the AG and I had some discussions on where we would go from here. But I have no jurisdiction in New York, no jurisdiction in California, so I was ending here.
The entire mortgage fraud problem, it was so massive in the whole country, and unless you had task forces in every major city in every county, you'd never be able to stop it. I mean, we had a huge case, but the bottom line is that we didn't do anything but touch the tip of an iceberg.
As the reality of the situation became clear to the team in Ohio, other state attorneys general began arriving at similar conclusions, and it wasn't long before they realized that what each had thought was an isolated outbreak of fraud in their respective states was in actuality a national epidemic.
We were dealing with a contagion. I'm talking to people in Washington and Minnesota and Texas and Illinois, and these are the actual states, and New York, and we're comparing notes. Well, this is what we're seeing. What are you guys seeing?
Nevada was very badly hit. California was hit. And some states suffered more than others, but there were no states untouched by this.
The business model was churn this volume out, put this stuff through, as many loans as you can possibly make. And when they start to go belly up in 2 years, refi them again. And how are you going to refi them? Well, you're going to come up with an appraisal that says their home is now worth $200,000 instead of $130,000. And how are you going to get a $200,000 appraisal? You're going to make it up.
We started to hear from people that they were actively told, don't worry about giving us facts and don't worry about what your income is. We'll just fill the numbers in.
And we saw this. They would take a bank statement, that was someone's legitimate bank statement, and then they would just take a different name and address, paste it on top of it, and now it's that person's bank statement too. Tracing of documents up against a Coke machine or up against a window. Whatever it took in order to close that loan is what happened.
Forging documents wasn't just something practiced by a few bad apples like Carnation Bank, but it apparently become the MO of the greater part, if not the entirety, of the U.S. mortgage industry. But what in the world would motivate any mortgage company, much less an entire industry, to put so much effort into making loans that they knew would never be paid back?
I don't think anybody saw it at that point. So I went to a colleague who was one of the masterminds behind the tobacco suit. And he's a really creative, thoughtful thinker. And I went to his office and I said, well, I just run something by you. Here's this company. You think I'm missing anything about how this works and what we're doing? And he said, how do they get their funding?
See, what you have to understand is that they weren't really mortgage companies. They were sales companies. It just so happened that the product that they were selling was subprime loans. That was their sole motivation. Their motivation was to close the loan and to sell it because there was a hunger for the product that was being produced.
Right, and the demand is coming from somewhere above.
Somewhere above.
And so we're trying to figure out, kind of like Columbo in the old TV shows, why in the world would somebody be going door to door in the south side of Akron trying to originate loans on houses for $100,000 on a house that anybody who lived in the neighborhood would know was worth $30,000 or $20,000 or $15,000. And the reason was there was such an incredible demand on Wall Street for those loans.
We followed one particular loan here in Akron that was bought by Goldman Sachs. And a phone call was made, and we tried talking to these people, and they talked back to us like we didn't know what we were talking about. Wasn't too long after that, we saw Security and Exchange Commission was looking into fraudulent loans, and it started naming the different banks on Wall Street, and one of them just happened to be Goldman Sachs.
Hey all, become that person nobody dares to argue with. Hit like, subscribe, and that little bell button for notifications. Talk to you soon.